Hi, my name is Craig. I'm the executive chef here at Bow & Stern, and we're here in our Chilliwack restaurant. Today we're going to do a pan-roasted halibut dish with some local Chilliwack corn and pancetta. So creating this dish, I wanted to keep it very local, very West Coast, as sustainable as possible, right? So we've got beautiful pan-roasted, or we're going to do pan-roasted halibut here, some pancetta, a little bit of Dungeness crab, and then of course, awesome local sweet Chilliwack corn. So to get started, we're just going to get the halibut going. About a fluid ounce to half, or a couple of tablespoons of oil into your pan. We're going to season it with salt and pepper as well. This is going to roast for about 6 to 8 minutes in your convection oven, about 425, just so we cook the halibut almost all the way through. The best way to eat halibut is medium well, so almost fully cooked, a little bit transparent in the middle, and that's so you kind of get that really soft, buttery flavor. At the same time, in a second pan, we're going to just start our corn nage, as I'm calling it, with it. So the reason we're starting the two things together is the halibut takes a few minutes to cook, but we want to render all that fat and all that salt out of the pancetta that we have in the dish. And that's going to take a few minutes. We're going to kind of get that cooking as well at the same time. I chose pancetta for this dish, and the salt is because halibut, like salmon or other very lean fishes, it needs fat because there's not a lot of fat in it, right? So getting the pancetta, there's a lot of salty fat in there. And then we're gonna add a little bit of butter in the end, and then a little bit of vinegar in the sauce that we're doing with it as well. So a good way to check that your pan is hot, you wanna look, make sure the oil is loose in the pan as well. And then when you start, you hear that sizzle. We're just gonna add that in, skin side down to start, and then back onto the heat. We're just gonna let that sear for a minute or so until it gets nice and crispy. Now, the pancetta. Pancetta is Italian bacon, comes from Italy. It's delicious, it's rolled and cured belly is what it is. We're gonna add that into another pan as well. And we're adding about 2.5 ounces, or about 120 grams in change for the most part. And we're gonna render that out. And what render means is we're gonna take low and slow, we're gonna render all the fat out of the bacon, so the bacon gets nice and crisp, we have all that nice salty fat on the inside. So just looking at the halibut here, we can start to see that it's starting to sear. We can see that there's the white marking on the end where the halibut's starting to roast off, right there. And that's what we want to see. We want to see those little bit of bubbles right there. That's the water and the fat that's being cooked off out of the halibut. And that's what we want to see. We want to see all of that coming out of the halibut. And then in the pancetta, we just want to slowly roast it out and get all that fat out. So just using a rubber spatula here like I have, or you can use a wooden spoon if you want as well. Just moving it around so we bring all that salty goodness out. We're gonna take our halibut into our preheated oven. We're gonna throw it in the oven for about 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes until it's done, and away we go with that. And we're gonna keep working on our side dish here. So at the same time, I've gone through and I've pre-diced some jalapenos, and I've taken some corn off the ears that I picked up just down the road at the market. I pre-diced, these are called poblano peppers. And these are in the pepper family, like red peppers or yellow peppers, but they hold their shape better and they don't get as soft as a red pepper or a yellow pepper do. You got a little bit of heat in them, but they're a really nice addition to anything you're doing. A little bit of chives at the end for garnish and some Dungeness crab just for some fun. Now, at the same time, if you don't have Dungeness crab, you can omit it from the recipe, but you could also add in some cooked shrimp if you had canned crab if you wanted to, or what have you. Even a little bit of other fish, a little bit of leftover salmon or something you have, works just as well. But it's your choice. The same thing with the pancetta. If you don't have pancetta or have trouble finding it at your local grocer, you could sub in some Italian sausage. You could use regular bacon if you wanted. The choices are endless here. It's a pretty versatile dish, so whatever you're feeling. Generally, I find pancetta when I'm shopping at the grocery store. It's usually in the deli case. It comes in a pre-sliced packet. Usually where I find it. But a few other local butchers I know have had it, and they can slice it to order, so you can order just as much as you need or as much or as little. Kind of when we get to this point, what we're looking for here is the bacon is getting very crispy. There's a lot of fat in the pan, and it's shriveled up quite a lot. That's what we're looking for, and that's when we know we've taken a lot of that fat out, and the bacon is ready to get the next components put into it here, okay? You'll also notice, I know it sounds kind of weird, I'm sure you can see this, the smoke kind of changes color. It goes from kind of steaming to like this white underlying smoke, and that's when you know we're getting to the point where you're not quite burning the bacon, and it's not burnt, but it's getting to that point, and that's also what you want to look for as well when you're cooking with pancetta specifically. Okay, so now that the pancetta is really crispy, what we're gonna do is kind of finish everything off here. So I have a little bit of minced garlic I'm gonna add into this dish. So about a tablespoon or so of minced garlic we're gonna put in. I have a little bit of diced red onion here as well. We're gonna put in a tablespoon and a little bit. The important thing when cooking, this is something I teach my staff all the time, is it's called mise en place, to put in place. Have everything ready to go. Do your chopping, do your cutting, get everything set, put it into little cups like this if you have them at home, or if you have soup cups, or your soup bowls, or even a little cookie sheet. I have a cookie sheet here. You can just make little piles of everything, and that way it makes everything easier when you're cooking and everything's right together. You're not running around the kitchen like we do in service trying to grab things that we forget or what have you. Now what we're doing is we're just gonna cook the garlic and the bacon and the onions just for a minute here. And what we're doing is just taking that raw flavor out. If we put those two items in specifically right away, and then add in the sweet corn and everything else right now, the onions are gonna end up being raw, the garlic's gonna be raw, and then it's gonna not cook at the same pace, and everything's gonna taste a bit different. So we wanna give that a minute ahead, just to get ahead of the cooking, and then we're gonna add the other ingredients as well. Just a quick 30 seconds or a minute, and you can start to see that the onions are getting a bit translucent in there now, and that's what we're looking for, just to get that cooking process started. Our chopped poblanos. And these you can find in your local grocer as well. If you don't have poblanos, you can use red peppers, yellow peppers. We're gonna add a little bit of diced jalapeno, about a tablespoon of diced jalapeno. And I know it sounds a lot, but again, when you have the fat and the bacon and the fish and everything, what we're doing is just adding a little bit of heat just to balance all that salt. And then we're gonna add our corn. We're gonna add about a half a cup of the sweet Chilliwack corn. Now this is raw off the kernel, away we go. So I just had my corn here. I shucked it this morning and it's just raw straight out, so it's not pre-blanched or anything. And all we're doing is just sauteing this all together now. Just tossing it together so it gets really well mixed and there's nothing out of balance or out of proportion, nothing sticking on the pan. So that also means to me we're at a good temperature on our frying pan as well. I'm just gonna pull that halibut out and check it out and see how it looks. Just starting to feel firm to the touch right there. A little bit of translucency on the color there, so we're gonna give that a second to rest. We're gonna flip it over. So, to finish this dish off here, so we've got our corn and everything's together. We've sauteed it for about a minute and we're just starting to cook those things out. Where peppers are getting a bit soft, the corn steaming out a little bit. We're gonna add a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt as well. And then we're gonna add 2 fluid ounces of white wine. So we're just gonna saute this together for a minute. And then that little bit of heat from deglazing with the white wine is gonna help steam out that corn, soften everything up a little bit, and then we're gonna go to plate. Now at this time, we're gonna add in the crab. Now we don't wanna cook the crab. What we wanna do is just warm the crab slightly in the pan, because the crab's already pre-cooked. You can get pre-cooked crab, or if you cook your crab at home. Just a little bit, just to warm it, because we don't wanna overcook it. We just wanna kinda take that cold temperature off it, right? And having all that hot product around it is gonna help warm it just slightly, and that's all we're looking for right there. It's a nice fresh chives. These actually came out of my garden this morning. I brought them in, just special for us. And then we're gonna add a little bit of butter. And this is gonna help slightly thicken just a little bit of that sauce in the bottom, add a little bit of sheen, and add a little bit of fat to our dish as well. Oh, it smells delicious. Now we're gonna flip our halibut here really quick. So just with a spatula I have, you're just gonna start underneath very slowly. Whoop. That's okay. Stuck a little bit, but that's all right. I'll show you what we're gonna do and how to fix that. So what we're gonna start with is our sauce in the bottom of the plate here. So I just have a normal tablespoon here. And just using my hands and a bit of the tablespoon, I'm just gonna make a spot in the middle for everything. Just kind of getting as much of that crab in there as you can, and the corn and stuff. Now I always, as my wife says, I always cook for an army when I'm at home, so I always have a little bit extra in the pan, and that's okay. It's good the next morning, a fried egg or something in the morning, to have that with leftovers or what have you. If you have too much in your pan, not a big deal. We're gonna bring our halibut over. We're gonna place our halibut right in the middle on top of everything here. Just like so. Okay. And now again, we'd said that a piece of this that got caught in the middle. That's okay. I have this lovely, very bright acidic sauce here. This is called sauce vierge. And what this is it's a diced tomato, it's garlic, sliced raw garlic, basil, salt, pepper, olive oil, and white wine vinegar. That's all it is. And it's a really nice, light, bright, acidic sauce to go with fish. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna place a bit of this on that part that's stuck on the fish, so you can't even see it now. It's like it wasn't even there. And don't be afraid to use your fingers. You know, we try not to use our fingers as much as we can, but sometimes that's all you need. Okay. And then last night, I made some fancy, these are just some fried basil leaves. This is just some fancy garnish we use in the restaurant sometimes. And then the other item I have here is we use this in the restaurant a lot. It's called green, it's an herb oil we use. And you can just take a little bit of that around the side if you have. Something else that would work really well is olive oil. If you have olive oil would work really well in this dish. That, my friends, is our dish, and I hope you enjoy it. Come down and see us here at District 1881 in downtown Chilliwack. I'm Chef Craig from Bow & Stern.